Hey, and welcome back to On Your Terms. I'm your host, Vander Wielen. Today we're talking about my trip to Kit's Craft and Commerce Conference in Boise, Idaho, just a couple of weeks ago. I've been to Craft and Commerce before, but this year there was a huge difference. This year I got to speak and teach a workshop. It was absolutely incredible, and I feel like I have so much to share with you, both just behind the scenes of how the week went, what it was like, some of the really cool things that I got to do that you don't know about, but also some of my major takeaways, because when I look back at all of the times that I've been to Craft and Commerce before, they are the most life-altering, business life-altering moments in my business. I always have the biggest sparks of inspiration. I meet the best people. I have a lot of major aha moments. And so that's a lot of what I'm going to share with you today. A little bit too of like a marketing report of kind of some of the trends and, consistent themes and messages that I picked up on while I was there. So if you've ever wanted to attend it in the past, this is your backstage pass. Or if you're just like, I don't have time to be going to all these things right now, I'm glad Sam did. I want to know what's going on. I want to know what the big people in the online business world are saying behind the scenes, then buckle up. This is a good episode for you. The last time I went to Craft and Commerce was back in June of 2022. It's always in Boise. And it was actually just 3 weeks after my dad died. Looking back on it, I can't believe that I even went, to be honest with you. But if you know anything about grief, it's kind of funny. Like, I was actually in a better place 3 weeks after my dad died than 3 months after my dad died. Like, I remember things got pretty bad for me personally in August, September, when a little bit of the shock had worn off. And I would say I fell into a pretty deep depression. So, understandably so. But when I was at Kit and was running around Craft and Commerce, I had a blast. I met the nicest people who I ended up being friends with, going on their podcasts, going into their groups and giving trainings, like doing all kinds of stuff, even to the point where when I start my business, I'll be happy, when it just came out on April 15th this year, some of the people who had me on their podcast and like mentioned me in their newsletter and all that kind of stuff were people I met at Kit back in 2022. So yeah, it was just like, you're going to hear me talk a lot about community today. It was like the greatest group of people. Like my friend Matt Guerra, for example, was on his podcast. I'll make sure I link that down below. But he's absolutely wonderful, and I got to see him again this year. So it's just such a nice group. Like, I don't know what they do, but they attract the nicest group of people. I was scheduled to go back the very next year, but as you know, my mom died. So this time, my mom actually died about a week before Craft and Commerce. So that wasn't happening because at this point, I was already taken out at the knees by having lost my dad. I was still struggling pretty badly after having lost my dad that same year. And then my mom died. And it was just like, I already had my ticket and my flight booked. I had everything. And it was just like, nope, not happening. So I did not go, unfortunately, and so I've missed it ever since. The following year, 2024, I would say I was still struggling in grief. I don't know. Will I ever not be struggling in grief? No, that's not true. I'm doing better now than I was. Even I was just telling a friend yesterday that I saw her back in October, and I was like in a really bad place, and I was like, oh, I feel like I'm really different now. And actually, people who I ran into at Craft and Commerce this year who know me were like, oh, you seem like you're doing a little bit better. So I'm getting there. But last year, yeah, I was still struggling with grief stuff and dealing with a lot of the stuff still from my mom's estate and the case related to my mom's death, which I'm still dealing with. And I was also writing my book. So it's like, you know what? Good year to take a pause and come back really strong in 2025. What I did not expect was that Kit asked me to come and speak. They asked me to come and give a keynote and also teach a workshop. So my keynote was about the vulnerability and authenticity that you can share in your business, like letting people in, letting your audience get to know you a little bit on a deeper level or a more personal level, like behind the scenes beyond what you sell, and how that accidentally leads to you growing your business, but that's not the reason that you do it. It was more a keynote for the people who have been through, and maybe you feel like this too, but like who have been through what I've been through, where you've had a lot of hard things going on in your life and you have an online business and you're an ambitious person who wants to do well in your business, which newsflash, you're allowed to be both, right? You can be ambitious and be like, shoot, I'm going through a lot, right? And I think sometimes people don't understand that like ambitious part of you doesn't die when a person dies in your life, or when you're going through a hard time, or you have a child, or like something happens in your life that pulls you away from your business. The ambition doesn't necessarily die. So it was just kind of like simmering. So how do you show up in your business during those times? Do you actually talk about it? That's what my keynote was about. So my keynote was so much fun. And then I also got to give a workshop, and the workshops are more tactical, hands-on, workshops. So I got to give a workshop on what the top 1% of creators on Kit, like myself, are doing to grow our email list. So beyond just the freebies and like the basic tactics that you've probably heard a million times, I wanted to share some of the more unique strategies and tactics that we're using to grow my list and nurture that list and eventually turn them to customers. So that was really fun too. We had a packed house. People asked a lot of really good questions, and it was just so fun to get to talk about one of my favorite things, email marketing. So since I was speaking, I had to get to Boise a little bit early because they have some events that I'll tell you about in a second for speakers only that are incredible. And so since I got there a day early, Pat Flynn and his team actually invited me to go to dinner with them, which I was like, are you guys sure? So I was really lucky to get invited to this. I had Pat on my podcast. He had me on his podcast, Smart Passive Income, this year. And so he was celebrating the release of his book, which, by the way, when we were there, got announced that he made the New York Times bestseller list. So we went to this dinner, and there were so many cool people there, like Pat and Caleb and Matt from his team, Tristan Montebello from Ultra Speaking, who I just love and thought was awesome, Dustin from Seven Figure Leap, which I felt the same about. He was so cool. Steve Cam from Nerd Fitness, Amanda Northcutt, who you might know, I've been on her podcast twice, Level Up Creators, and Dan Cumberland, who was a new to me friend. Like, all of these people were all so amazing. I just felt so lucky to get to go to this gathering and get to hear about everybody's background. And what I really took away from that dinner that I wanted to share with you was that, I feel relatively young as a entrepreneur, especially when I'm in those circles, because these people mostly started like mid 2000s, or 2010-ish. They started pretty early, their online businesses. They really were at the forefront, which I have so much respect for people who saw something coming before it was here and got in the game really early. And because they've been doing it so long and they're a little bit older than me in age, I also felt like it was really helpful for me to hear from them, how many iterations of their business life they've had. So, I've been doing this. I've had a legal business for 8 years selling legal templates and the Ultimate Bundle. And I'm a kind of one-trick pony per se until I came out with my book, right? And I'm on the precipice now or maybe I'm there already, but being hey, I want to talk about other stuff, not sell the legal templates and not talk about legal or anything like that. But I have more to offer. I've been through a lot. I've learned a lot. I've done a lot. People ask me questions about a lot of other things other than legal. And I am also, I'm not sure if you know this, but I'm actually human and multidimensional. And so this is not AI generated me. This is just me. And so I am multidimensional. I have many different interests, and I have put myself in a box. I feel like maybe some other people have put me in a box, but also I kind of look for that as confirmation of a fear that I have that I'm supposed to stay in this box. And so I've been not only nervous about stepping out of that box, but I've been a little confused as to how, or doubting, do you want to hear about these other things from me? Do you only want to hear about legal? What do you really care? You don't need somebody else to teach you email marketing. There's so many people out there doing it. Maybe that sounds familiar because this might be what you're thinking about you and your business, especially if you're starting out, right? And I didn't feel this so much on the legal side because when I started, there were so few people doing it that I felt like I was at the forefront of my little part, my niche of the industry, right? And so what I want to talk about is perhaps more broad, and there's more people doing it, right? So that creates a lot of doubt in my mind, a lot of hesitation as to whether I'm qualified or whether you find me interesting enough or whether I've done enough, am I accomplished enough to be able to talk about these things? And also like whether or not I'm going to confuse people and like stray from my message and all these kinds of things. So at the dinner, it was really cool to hear people share. Like, like I remember Dustin from Seven Figure Leap, he shared about how he once started and like bought and sold a meat stick company. And I was just like dying like that's just an example of how he helps seven figure creators now like grow their businesses. And you had a meat stick company, and like Pat Flynn, he's done so many things. Like Pat started his business because he was an architect, so similar, had a professional background like me. He got laid off, which kind of pushed him as the catalyst to him starting to sell like an ebook of sorts, of training to help architects pass the architecture exam. It's like, that's brilliant, right? So he did that. And then he's had 9 million businesses since then, including a tripod that he sells. Now, as you know, he's doing Deep Pocket Monster on YouTube. Like and in addition to still running Smart Passive Income. So like he's so multifaceted. So I think just in that moment, it was really helpful for me to hear from all of these people, not just to get the permission to flex, but also because it was like, it wasn't just that they allowed themselves, it was actually that trying all those different things, doing all those different things is part of what led them to being more successful in the next thing, or kind of like knowing what to look for, or knowing how to start, or starting before they were ready. Like them having that attitude and that experience, it really helps them in the long run. So that dinner like meant so much to me, and it really helped me. The next day, Wednesday, was the only day out of the entire week that I was there that I had a free morning. And I wanted to share something with you that I did that was so helpful. So my mindset coach, Jen Diaz, she had sent me a visualization about public speaking and, going on stage and like saying, I am ready. Like I've been working for this. Like I'm ready to rise to the occasion. Like I will rise to the occasion. So I had been doing this all week. Shout out to Jen. This visualization was so helpful. This is why you should join her Java method, because she has all these visualizations in it. And I was doing this visualization all week. And then I had this idea on Wednesday morning when I had some free time that I would go to a coffee shop and I would do my morning pages, my 3 pages of, free writing. And I would write out how the talk went. And so it was just like as if I was like post hoc, and I was just like, oh, I got up there, I was calm, it was cool, collected, I was confident. People came up to me after, and I would write out like specifically, like very specific moments, like who I made eye contact with in the audience, somebody that I saw laughing, or just saying like, oh, I cracked this joke and people laughed, I even talked about how people came up to me after and exactly what they said, like not just like praise, but like what the talk meant to them, how it made them feel. Like I really, really wrote this all out as many times as I could. And I went back to my hotel room and I practiced my talk a few more times. I tried a tip that our speaker coach that Kit provided us, Mike Pecchione, one of my friends, had given me, which was to try shouting my talk and also to give my talk over loud music, just to like almost practice the energy of it and the energy that you feel in the room. So I did that. I mean, at this point, I was like, this is my first keynote, guys. I'll do anything. So I did try it, and I'm sure it was really helpful. So I did that, and then it was time to go off to the speaker mastermind. So back in 2022 when I went, I had heard that there was a secret mastermind that you got to go to if you were like either VIP or if you were one of the speakers. And I remember back in 2022 being like, I am going to make my way to that mastermind somehow. So because I was a speaker, I got to go. And so it was so cool because they had Barrett Brooks, for example, come in and give a great talk on the mindset of an entrepreneur. He did some live coaching with us, which was so helpful. And then Tristan and Michael from Ultra Speaking also came in and did a talk about public speaking, which was so helpful because they had us play some of their games, their public speaking games, which were just, I thought, so helpful and definitely helped me feel more prepared for my keynote. So we were in this mastermind for like 6 hours, and other than what I've told you so far, I'm not really allowed to talk about it. Nathan Barry, the founder of ConvertKit, actually came out early and said, whatever happens here, we don't talk about it. So that's that. I can tell you that it was really awesome. You get to meet so many people. You get to go into these little like groups, and that was so cool. I just had a lot of fun in mastermind day. It was like 5 or 6 hours long. So after the mastermind was done, we headed over to the opening party, which the really cool thing about the opening party for me was that they were handing out copies of my book. So I got to see when I start my business, I'll be happy in the wild. People were carrying it around. Some people who had it knew who I was or that I was the author of it. And so they would come up to me and ask if I could sign it, which was really fun. Other people were carrying it around. And so then I would be like, hey, by the way, that's my book. And they'd be like, wait, you wrote this? Like, this is your book? So it was a really fun conversation starter. That was a very intentional strategy on me and the team's part because Lindsay and I got to decide like how and when we wanted my book presented. Did we want to do like a formal book signing? Did we want to include it in everybody's like gift bag? Like there were so many different options. And I poked around and asked like, well, what are the other people doing? Because we had also Tori Dunlap from her first 100K. And we had Anne Lore, who also wrote Tiny Experiments. And so it was like there were lots of other people there who had written books. And so I found out what everybody else was doing. And I was like, whatever they're doing, I want to do something different just so that it's like people aren't not only inundated with the books, but just to stand out and like have an opportunity to talk to people. So when we found out that no one was handing anything out at check-in, it was like, well, this is perfect because I'll be there. I would be happy to walk around and talk to people and then I can like sign it in real time. So that's what we did. And I think that ended up being a really smart move. So they completely not sold out because we didn't sell it. We gave it out, but like we gave out every single copy. All the copies were gone. I think there were 250 copies at the check-in. So that was a pretty cool feeling to know people were excited. And the team from Kit told me that when people were checking in, they were really excited that the book was included. So from the opening party, I then got invited to a sort of like VIP party, whatever we're calling it. People who spoke and like people who'd spoken in the past got invited to this party that Barrett Brooks hosted. He was the former COO of Kit, is now out in his own coaching. He's an awesome guy. And so I got to go to his party. And by this point, I was feeling so much more comfortable because I had met a lot of the people at the mastermind that day, at the opening party, even at Pat's dinner. So I'm telling you, like, this is how craft and commerce is. It's just like within a couple of hours, I felt like I had friends for life. And so all of those same people were at the dinner. And so I just thought that was really helpful to start to relax into it and just be able to be myself. Because at this point, this is Wednesday night, my keynote was Thursday afternoon. The nerves were definitely starting to set in that I was giving a keynote at Kit the next day. So Thursday morning, I wake up and it's keynote day. I do my visualization one more time. I did my morning pages one more time where, again, I wrote out exactly how the talk went, even though I hadn't given it yet. And I really just tried to keep myself chill. Now, partially because of the nerves and partially because of the time change. I live outside of New York City on Long Island, and this was in Boise, so it was a 2-hour time difference. I was waking up so early. So I originally wasn't going to go to any like other keynotes or go to the conference during that day in the morning. But I actually ended up waking up at like 5 and having more than enough time to, get myself together, have some chill time, go over and get a breakfast and do all of that stuff. And I decided to go. My friend Natasha Pierre from Shine with Natasha, who also does my social media management, she was there to capture everything for social, but Natasha has done tons of public speaking in the past. And I thought she gave me a really good tip, which was if you're speaking and you don't show up to a venue until you're ready to speak, that alone can be a little intimidating because it's like you're taking in all of the energy like all at once and you're about to go on stage. So I did end up heading over and watching all the keynotes and just sitting in the audience. And I thought that was so helpful for just like easing my way into the vibe and the energy of the place because there were so many people and like just such good but big energy there. After I watched the keynotes, it was time to grab a quick lunch. I remember my stomach was just feeling like, I don't know. It was just like, not, I don't know. It was a ball of knots. And so I was like, what does one eat when you feel like this? Well, obviously you go to Mod Pizza and you make a veggie pizza. So that's what I did. I just felt like in my mind at that moment, like a really small pizza, like kind of plain in terms of the crust, but then a million vegetables sounded like a good idea. It worked. I don't know. So I went over and grabbed that, and then I ran to Dry Bar to get my hair done so that I could feel good and confident. And at that point, it was time to like run back to the hotel, quickly change. I ended up deciding to wear a different top because I had originally planned to wear this like striped t-shirt because I'm always wearing a striped t-shirt. I could create a museum of stripes, but that's what you guys should do when I croak. But I ran back to the hotel to change, and I was like, there's no way I'm wearing this t-shirt because I'm going to be a puddle of sweat. And like, that moment when you can tell that you're sweating and then you start mentally processing the idea that like everyone else can probably tell that you're sweating, like see pit stains. So then it makes you more nervous. And then it's like a vicious cycle of sweating and more nervous that people can see you. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm going to stop that cycle right there. So I decided to switch things up in the last moment, which was, I'm sure my stylist Connie would love this idea. I went with a tank top instead that I could then throw a little like jean jackety shirt looking thing, a shacket, over it so that I was like, okay, I can wear the tank top like right until I go onto stage, and then I'll throw this thing on and no one will be able to tell I'm sweating. So pro tip, if you sweat when you're nervous, which I mean, I just sweat on a good day, but if you sweat when you're nervous, highly recommend that because I'm telling you, I would have been up there just like I would have been able to tell that I was sweating, and then I would have been freaking out that everyone could see that I was sweating. So I was like, nope, not happening. So once you get over to the venue, I was told by Kit I had to be backstage back in the green room. And so in the afternoon sessions, it was Pat Flynn, then my friend Nisha Vora, and then me. Okay. So like, and then Chris Donnelly after me. So I'm like, how did I end up in this group? I don't know. So I go backstage, and thank goodness Nisha was there because she's so calming and so sweet. And so like we were talking, and her partner Max was there, who's delightful. And so like we were all just talking and kept it very chill, which was nice. And we got to watch Pat go on, and you get mic'd up and you get your little like Britney mic situation, and they make sure everything's all connected and not messing up your hair. And you just like wait back in the green room, and there's a big screen that not only shows you the main stage and the speaker, but it has all the different camera angles. So I'm standing there watching it, and honestly, I felt pretty good. I was really surprised for how nervous I kept saying I was and how nervous I felt before, that I was like, I actually think I'm okay. Like as much as I can be, at this point, going out before your first keynote to that large of an audience on that big of a stage, period, like not only with that much production, but I just know like in our industry, that stage has a lot of meaning and weight to it. And I felt so similarly to how I felt when I took the bar exam. I've told this story before, but when I showed up to the bar exam, all of my classmates thought I was like being cocky. Like I thought, because I was in such a good mood. Like I wasn't saying I was going to kill it. I was just happy. And a lot of them were like, what's wrong with you? Like, what do you think, you're going to kill this thing? And they all thought they were going to fail. I was like, no, like actually, I think I probably will fail, but I was not very confident. Still not. But I was like, I'll probably fail. But here's the thing. I busted my butt like all for 3-4 months, whatever, to study for the bar. And if that's not good enough, it's not good enough, because I know I left it all on the table. And that's sort of how I felt about this, because, when it comes to public speaking, it's not about just practicing until you memorize something. I think that's something that a lot of people confuse it. Personally, I think it's about practicing to make sure that the story is right. And it's almost like learning directions so that the next time you don't need to read directions. I don't know. Michael and Tristan will have to tell me if this is like quote unquote correct, but this is kind of how it works, at least in my brain, is like I kept practicing to almost like learn the little like checkpoints that brought me to the next story, and knowing where my next checkpoint was, so that it made me feel more comfortable and confident in telling the story that was in especially my keynote. And so it wasn't that I had necessarily practiced it so many times that I had nailed it and memorized it for life. It was that I knew the story. I kind of knew where I was headed. I knew what was important. I knew like where to emphasize certain things. I knew where to crack a joke. Like, but the stuff kind of changed and flexed. Every time I did it, it was different. Every single time. Again, Michael and Tristan, tell me if this is right. So I just practiced it in that sense, not to practice it to memorize it. Like I just wanted to share this with you in case this helps you. I don't think that what I'm saying just applies. I was thinking about this a lot over the week, as like we talked a lot about public speaking, but I don't think that you only need to apply these principles to public speaking. I think they can also apply to podcasting, to creating a YouTube video, to even creating social content and like creating a hook and like knowing how to be engaging and storytelling and like not being monotone and all of these kinds of things. So like I think a lot of this applies. So I hope that this helps you to realize that like a lot of this is just not about memorization per se. It's about telling a good story. and you feeling confident that you know when the time comes, you will say the quote unquote right thing, not meaning it's PC or like that there's a wrong thing, more that like you will rise to the occasion. So when my friend Nisha was about halfway through her keynote, Kit came and got me and said, it's time to go. And I walked behind stage. They had this like control room and you would just stand there. I have this picture of me actually that Natasha took as she was backstage with me, where I didn't know she took the picture of me, but I'm just so in the zone. I'm just like standing there and I'm just in the zone and chugging water because I was afraid that my voice was going to go while I was on stage. And so I'm standing there and all of a sudden I look down at the control monitor and the label on the camera that's on the stage on the bottom says Roberta. Okay, if you don't know, my mom's name was Roberta. And also, if you don't know, Roberta is not exactly your common household name. It's not like a Sam, Sarah, Katie, whatever, like not many people in the world are named Roberta. And I looked down and I saw that. Like literally, it changed right as I was about to go on stage. I have a picture of it. And I remember like freaking out, showing Natasha, who knew that my mom's name was Roberta. So she was like, whoa. And then be like, I cannot deal with this right now. I cannot look at it. Like, I have to just stay in the zone. And then they're like, okay, you're ready. Let's go out. I'm like, what? What? Like, I was just like so rattled in a good way, I guess. I don't know. I was nervous. So I walk up. You walk up this like really steep ramp. And I have to listen to now my new friend Shiv from Kit give a little speech about me. And then they start playing my walk-on music, which was Happy by Pharrell. And I walk out and I don't know what else to tell you other than that in that moment, I just settled in. I don't know. It's like, this is it. It was kind of like exactly what Jen said in the visualization of like, you're ready for this. You've done the work. And this is the next step. Like this, it just felt like the next natural step. I think going back to what I said earlier, I felt so comfortable and confident with this story. This probably sounds very dumb and obvious, but I felt really confident in the message that I was delivering too. Like, I really do believe in encouraging people who feel comfortable and want to be more vulnerable and authentic in their content. And as I share about in my talk, doesn't mean messy. It doesn't mean that your business is your journal. It doesn't mean sharing about every single thing in your life or what's going on. But it does mean maybe sharing parts that you are okay with a little bit, like opening the door just a little bit and letting people in a little bit. And wait till you see what kind of connection that creates with people. Like, I do feel passionately about that message. And so there was a part of me that just felt like I was there delivering something I really believed in. I pulled out of my butt this like idea to kind of have an intro because my speaker coach, Mike Pacquiao, had mentioned that he didn't think my intro was good the day before. And the intro was that there was a slide that came up that said vulnerability isn't a strategy. And he was like, I think you need to tell people more of like how, like at the top, like how you, like kind of the argument, the summary of the argument that you're going to make. When I went out there, I was just like, hey, today we're here to talk about being more vulnerable and authentic in your content. And because the truth is, there are a lot of you sitting out there who are going through really awesome things in your life and your business right now. And it is also true that there are people out there who are going through a really hard time, like I was when I was sitting there 3 years ago. But today I'm here to argue that being more vulnerable and authentic in your content will end up creating a greater connection with your audience and end up growing your business, but that's not why we do it. And then I like clicked and I was like, because vulnerability isn't a strategy and authenticity isn't a tactic. And then I went into my talk. So I think it gave people a little bit more of context of like, I think Mike was right ultimately that it was helpful to have that little like blurb in the beginning that was kind of like, this is what we're here to talk about today. Like setting the tone right off the bat too, to be like, hey, I'm here to talk about real stuff. And then also being like, but I'm here to argue that this will help you grow your business, but that's not why we do it, because that's manipulative and we don't do that. And so, yeah, giving them some of my like Philly sass. There was a lot of Philly stuff throughout my keynote. I thought Philly was like a cool through through line throughout my talk, because I talked a lot about how like being from Philly, people who are from Philly are like honest. They are like share how they feel. They're no BS. They're very like, this is how my day's going. Like, do you want to hear about it or not? And so I thought that was like a good little like through line in my talk to bring it back to like where I was from and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, 20 minutes of that keynote, I ended it. And I'm going to be honest with you, because if you know me, I'm not one to ever say this about myself, ever, about anything, even when it's been very obvious in the past. I killed it. I killed it. I was like, I mean, for me, right? Like, was it the world's greatest talk? No, of course not. Like, of course not. That's not what I'm saying. But like, for me, I killed it. I was like, I walked off of there and I literally was like, I killed it. Guys, I killed it. And like, I never, ever, ever say that kind of stuff. So it was such a huge relief on the one hand, where I was like, wow, all those things I was worried about, like, I was worried about crying because I talked about my parents a lot, and I was worried that maybe the nerves would get to me, or like it would be flat or boring or something like that. It wasn't any of those things. It went really, really well. And when I got off stage, everybody's response mimicked that, mirrored that back to me. Everybody was like freaking out and coming up to me and saying congratulations. And, you know, Mike Pacquiao was like freaking out. He was so proud and that I'd done so well. And Michael from Ultra Speaking told me I was a natural. I was like, what? And people didn't know that it was my first one. And so a lot of people were like, wait. And so as the day went on, that was kind of a cool like side effect, as people were finding out that it was my first one. Cause like, you know, obviously I didn't lead with that. They were like, wait, what? That was your first one? Like I thought you did this all the time. I'm like, nope, but I want to. So it was just like a bliss. I don't know how else to describe it. There's no other feeling. It's like such a rush. And I was so happy to see how much everybody else loved it. And it inspired a lot of other people. It was really, really cool. That night, I got to go to the speaker dinner, where I was so happy I got to spend more time with Anne-Laure Lecomte, because she was one of the people I was so excited to meet. And Tori Dunlap and Nisha Vora and like so many of my friends were there now that I had like met over the course of the conference, and so many of the other speakers. So that was really, really cool. And we got to go and do some photos out in the street, which was really fun. I got to sit on a trash can and do photos, and didn't get to bed probably till after midnight. It was like just such a long day. The next day I had my workshop, and I attended other people's workshops and like did all of the things, and it was fantastic. And then we had the closing party, which is like my most favorite part of KIT, because at that point it's just like everyone lets loose and is like so relieved and all that kind of stuff, and people know each other by now. But it was just such an incredible conference. So incredible that before we go today, I want to share my top takeaways, at least what I am walking away with right now from having attended. Have you ever felt lost about where to begin with the legal side of protecting your online business? Some people say you can just wing it at the beginning and get officially set up later. Not a good idea, by the way. Whether you're afraid to even start working with clients because you don't want to do something wrong legally and then get in trouble, or your business is growing and you sort of forgot to take care of the legal pieces, I've got you. I don't want you to live in fear of the internet police coming after you and your business, but you do have to do certain things and get certain things in place in order to legally and safely run your business online. As much as it just feels like an unregulated wild, wild west online, that is very much not the case. As an attorney turned entrepreneur and former corporate litigator, I can assure you that there are rules. There are real steps that everybody who runs or starts an online business needs to take. And you're not behind at all. We can get you set up and following the rules right away. In fact, we can even do it today. I want to teach you the 5 very simple steps to take to legally protect and grow your online business. You don't need an MBA to be a successful entrepreneur and stay out of legal hot water, but you do need to dot your legal I's and cross your T's in a few key areas that can't be skipped. That's exactly what I'll teach you in my free 1-hour legal workshop called 5 Steps to Legally Protect and Grow Your Online Business. Just head to mylegalworkshop.com, drop in your email address, pick the time, and I'll send you a link to watch the workshop video whenever you have time. This is the best place to begin if you're just getting started legally legitimizing your business, so head on over to mylegalworkshop.com and sign up to watch 5 Steps to Legally Protect and Grow Your Online Business now. The first thing that was definitely a theme throughout this conference is that the most successful people who I knew there and who I met there are hyper-focused on, one, if maybe two cornerstone platforms that are not TikTok or Instagram or X or Threads or whatever else. They are really focused on podcasting, on YouTube, on Substack, some LinkedIn. There's a lot of LinkedIn people. So they are really, really focused on this more cornerstone thing. I think for somebody like me, I think it's like a lot of the timing of when I came into online business, but I still like mentally prioritize social media, even though I know logically that YouTube and my podcast and my email list are really like so much more of where I want to focus my time. And it's not that I don't want to be on social or that I don't think you should or anything like that, but it has its place. And I think what's always helpful for me about going to something like Craft and Commerce is that I see the people who I want to be more like, and I'm like, oh, they're not like diddling around on Instagram 300 times a day. Like they're posting maybe a couple times a week, couple times a month, and then they're like getting out, or they're having somebody just repurpose content there, and they're really focused on growing their podcast, their newsletter, their YouTube channel, whatever. The second thing was actually about introducing yourself and saying what you do. So they had a speaker, Clay Hebert, who talked about how to introduce yourself in your like I help statement or like a 6-word intro or something like this. And I thought what was like most mind-blowing about what Clay said and taught was that you don't have to tell the person everything or be completely thorough. In fact, it's actually helpful to leave a little like curiosity spark, some ambiguity so that it starts a conversation. So like, for example, Clay had told me like I could tell people like I help keep creators out of jail. and I was like, my instant thing was like, wait, that's not what I do, because there's no such thing as like jail for like having sent a contract and, this kind of stuff. And like what I help people with is make sure they get paid and make sure they protect their boundaries and their content and their IP and all this kind of stuff. He's like, yeah, that's like all part of the follow-up. Like, it's just an intriguing, like, this is what I do. And then somebody being like, oh, so you're a lawyer? Yeah, I'm a lawyer who actually helps people legally set up their businesses through my contract templates. Like, it was just interesting to hear him talk about this. And he actually had a little formula that I thought was so helpful that I want to share with you. Okay, so the little formula that Clay taught us to design your own I help statement, your introduction statement to other people to tell them what you do in response to the question, what do you do, is to use this formula. I help people, verb, their noun. I help people, verb, their noun. So I thought that was really interesting because like I help people like break their cycle, or I don't know, like you can think about whatever it is for your niche. I thought that you can create this and create such a more interesting introduction to yourself. The third thing is something I've touched on already, which is that public speaking is actually not about memorization. It actually has more to do with building trust and confidence in yourself, that you know what to say and you will say it when the time comes. The fourth thing is that people are rooting for you. I think that it's easy as an entrepreneur, maybe you don't know a lot of people in your space, or you don't, like, your family or your friends don't really understand what you do. But when you get out and meet people in these kinds of communities in particular, like, these people all want you to do well, and hopefully you want them to do well too. And I just think it's really helpful to remember that when you're feeling like threatened in a way and like feel like you don't know if you can make friends in this space or something like that. The fifth thing is that email and newsletters are king. And yes, of course, I was at a conference that was run by an email marketing company. So I get that there's going to be a lot of emphasis on newsletters and email marketing. But I mean, I spoke to like everybody who was also speaking and all this stuff. We are all hyper focused on growing our email list with all of the changes in platforms and apps and algorithms and all of that kind of stuff, and the fatigue from social media. It was a resounding trend that everybody was like, I'm just trying to grow my list. I'm just focused on my list. I mean, I always walk away with so many ideas and thoughts about email lists in general. Some of the things I have to give a little bit more thought to and kind of see what I think I'm going to like play with it this summer for my own business, was looking at how much more people are monetizing their email marketing in general. So like there are so many different things you can do, from affiliate links to sponsorships to whatever else, to even just like maybe having smaller products that run in a nurture sequence. Like I kind of have one major funnel that goes to my main product, but I don't mention my products in a lot of the other like welcome onboarding nurture sequences. So even walking away from that, like just being a little more sales oriented, maybe, I don't know. So I have to see like how that fits for me. But even thinking about the like sponsorships, affiliate stuff, I've done a lot of the sponsorships. I don't like to use a lot of them, but I think a couple targeted ones a year would be really cool. And then same for affiliates, like I only share usually with my customers the tools that I use the most and that I actually love, like Kit, for example, which I use for my email marketing, which I'll make sure I drop the affiliate link down below. I only share about stuff that I use myself or that I've taken before or whatever that I know I really like. But I could also be more intentional about that and like run an affiliate campaign once or twice a year or something like that. It's just like additional revenue when I'm not having a sale. I definitely got the sense from being there that the thing that I've been preaching now for a while, which is that your newsletter itself can be the freebie, like it can be the value, and you can get people straight onto your list if you market your email newsletter as being the thing that they're opting in for because it's so valuable and it has like a vibe, a kitschy name, like something like that. That was definitely, I was seeing that like now in other people. When I went there the last time, people weren't really doing that. So I thought that was pretty cool. Like people are definitely branding newsletters and pushing people straight to the list. So I think that could be really helpful for you because you don't have to make it overly complicated. The sixth thing is that authenticity is clearly king. A lot of us were talking about this at the conference that we weren't sure if this was because there's so much AI chatter and like AI, push for AI and all this kind of stuff, whether people now are like just feeling so called to show their humanness and like maybe they're craving the humanness. I find it really interesting because it's like for me, AI is helpful for in my business for like tasks that we didn't want to do or that are like repetitive or that just like something to quickly churn out or do. But I personally do not want to use it for original content, for my likeness, like recreating my voice or my image or a video like they had somebody present about. I have no interest in doing that. It sounded to me like a lot of the people at the conference were also pretty resistant to AI. And I don't know, I was just like getting the vibe that a lot of people were resistant, but felt like they have to be pro AI and that there's almost like this pressure and that nobody wants to say it because I felt like, because it's, me and back to what I said before, I'm from Philly. So like, I would just be like, ugh, I hate it. Like, I don't want to do any of this stuff. And people would be like, oh my God, thank God for saying that because I feel the same way. And I'd be like, well, why does everybody keep saying that when I say it? But then we're all like creating all this content about AI is king. And if you don't do it, you're all going to die and your business is going to die. And like all these things are horrible. I just didn't understand it. It almost like felt like that's what everybody thinks and feels, but no one is talking about it. And then that's what's then pushing all of this like sub niche content to be like authenticity, authenticity, authenticity. And it's like, I wonder why we all want to be so authentic and vulnerable because we don't like all this plastic content that we're seeing. So I don't know. It's super interesting and I'll be curious where that goes. This leads me to my very last point of what I'm taking away. I had a conversation with Pat Flynn at dinner where I was sharing with him about the AI stuff. And I was like, I feel sometimes like an old lady where I'm like, okay, it's cool. And I like some of the things and features and like it can do in our business and like, I don't know, almost like productivity wise, I think that's great. So I don't want to lose that part of me that's a creator that loves writing and loves creating and doing all of these things. And I was telling him about how this has brought up some fear for me because I will hear people say those businesses who don't have this and that AI in their business will be done in 5 years and like all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, is that going to be me? Because I'm an old lady and I don't feel like doing this stuff. And Pat was like, who are these people? Like, who are you listening to? And I was like, well, not naming names, but I was just like, there's people saying it and they like do this and they do that. And he's like, well, okay, first of all, do they sell something related to AI? I'm like, okay, yes, they do. He's like, and also, do they have a business that you want to be more like? Are they ahead of you? Are they aspirational for you in some way? I'm like, no, no, I think my business is does better. And I don't mean that in a financial way, but like I'm happy with the way my business goes and I'm not trying to look like their business. And he's like, then why are you listening to them? I was like, oh, Pat Flynn, that's a great point. And so Pat was like, I listen to people who I want to be like. And I look to people who I want to be more like, and I hear what they're saying. And even then you filter it through your own thing. But like, I realized in that moment too, that it's like, not only am I listening to those people, but I am taking in a lot of information, period. Like a lot, I'm consuming a lot. I hear a lot. I see a lot. I read newsletters. I do lots of different things. And it does mess with your head and it makes you question what you're doing is okay or right or whatever. It also distorts how many people are doing. Like, I'm like, everyone's doing it. And then you go to a conference like that and everybody's like, no, I don't want to do any of these things. Like, I'm not doing that in my business. So it's super interesting. But that conversation meant a lot to me, and it really helped to settle me back into like myself and kind of ground myself in what I'm doing. So I already bought my ticket to go to Craft and Commerce next year. I'm so excited to go back. I will go every year that I'm available. I love it there. I'm so curious to hear from you. What questions do you have for me about giving a keynote there, a workshop? What questions do you have about what I learned at the conference? Let me know if you liked this episode. I'd love for you to hit reply on my email or send me a DM on Instagram at Sam Vander Wielen to let me know if you liked this episode. And with that, if you don't already, make sure you click the link in the show notes to get my free weekly newsletter, Sam's Sidebar, where I not only send you weekly legal tips, but I also share marketing advice that actually works and that's helped to grow my multi-seven-figure business year over year. I really want to help you dig deep and find something like the marketing strategies that actually help you to grow this business for the long run. So if you don't get this email already, just go down, click, and sign up. It's absolutely free. Over 48,000 of your online business peers get it in their inbox every single week and love it. So sign up for Sam's Sidebar using the link below. All right, with that, I'll see you next Monday. Thanks so much for listening to the On Your Terms podcast. Make sure to follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you like to listen to podcasts. You can also check out all of our podcast episodes, show notes, links, and more at samvanderwielen.com/podcast. You can learn more about legally protecting your business and take my free legal workshop, 5 Steps to Legally Protect and Grow Your Online Business at samvanderwielen.com. And to stay connected and follow along, follow me on Instagram at Sam Vander Wielen and send me a DM to say hi.